Muslims take the oath of allegiance to the United States and actually mean it? I ask because, on the one hand, recent developments seem to question Islam's place in America, rightfully so. On the other hand, these developments are revealing just how ignorant most people are about Islam. For example, a great many Americans continue to make an artificial distinction between Islam and Sharia. They see Islam as just another religion, which is welcome in the United States, a nation that prides itself on religious freedom. Sharia, on the other hand, is seen as strange, antiquated law codes, loosely but not necessarily connected to Islam, codes upheld only by radical or extreme Muslims, who represent a minority among the Ummah. In reality, and as explained in this video, Islam and Sharia are inextricably linked. They are two sides of one coin. Islam is a descriptive name of the religion. Sharia is its prescriptive application. An observant, practicing, or pious Muslim is by definition a Sharia-adherent Muslim. Which brings me to the point of this video. This distinction without a difference, fallacy, undermining how Americans understand Islam, is just one of their many blind spots. A more important, because more fundamental, blind spot concerns the oath of allegiance all naturalized citizens of the United States are required to take. Most Americans take it for granted that this oath poses no difficulties for, and can be easily taken by, people of all or no religions, including Muslims. But is that so? Let's see. Let's go through the oath of allegiance, line by line, and compare its demands on Muslims who want to be U.S. citizens with Sharia's demands on Muslims who want to be, well, Muslims. They who, by definition, surrender to the will of Allah. The oath of allegiance to the United States that Muslims, like all naturalized U.S. citizens, must take begins with these words, quote, I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen. Now, as it happens, this opening pledge directly contravenes one of Islam's most cardinal rules. Muslims must always be loyal to and only to fellow Muslims. This includes Muslim individuals, groups, entities, and nations. In a word, the Ummah. This important Arabic word, which means nation, refers to the supranational Islamic nation that transcends national identities, borders, and languages. Many are the Quran verses and hadith that support this position. Quran 5:55 simply informs Muslims that, quote, your only friends and allies are Allah, His Messenger, meaning Muhammad, and fellow believers. The oath of allegiance continues, quote, I hereby declare on oath that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Well, so now, after pledging that they had renounced all former allegiances, Muslims are also required to pledge their allegiance and support, in a word, their loyalty to the U.S. and its secular man-made laws, and to protect the same against all enemies, including foreign ones, which naturally includes fellow Muslims. Once again, this entire pledge completely contravenes some of Islam's most core teachings. Far from being allowed to pledge allegiance to any non-Muslim person, entity, or country, Muslims are actually required, whenever circumstances are favorable, to wage war, jihad, on and subjugate all non-Muslims, including by, of course, cooperating with foreign Muslims, who as members of the Ummah are the only true brothers of every Muslim, even if they are of different races, nations, and languages, as we just saw. Again, many are the Quran verses that support this divisive doctrine. Quran 5:51 warns Muslims against, quote, taking the Jews and Christians as friends and allies. Whoever among you takes them for friends and allies, he is surely one of them. In other words, any Muslim who befriends or allies with any American, Christian, or Jew becomes an infidel, an enemy of Islam. There are so many other Quran verses that promote this sort of religious tribalism. Quran 58 22 goes so far as to declare that true Muslims never befriend non-Muslims, quote, even if they be their fathers, sons, brothers, or kin. Here's a fun fact. According to Islamic exegesis, several of these verses were revealed to justify and praise some of Muhammad's closest companions who renounced and even slaughtered their own non-Muslim relatives as a show of their loyalty to Allah and the believers. One slew his father, another his brother, a third, Abu Bakr, the first caliph, tried to slay his own son, and Omar, the second caliph, slaughtered several relatives. Nor is it enough to reject non-Muslims. The Quran calls on Muslims to hate all non-Muslims, based on the example of the Prophet Ibrahim, who is a perversion of the biblical Abraham. In the Islamic tradition, before breaking away from his unbelieving kinsmen, Ibrahim says to them, quote, we renounce you. Enmity and hate shall forever reign between us, until you believe in Allah alone. This, the Quran says, is an excellent example for all Muslims to follow, to hate all who refuse to submit to Allah. See Quran 64. This is why a well-respected cleric insists that while Muslim men are permitted to marry and sexually enjoy Christian and Jewish women, Ahl al-Kitab, they must also hate and show that they hate these infidel women. Now, obviously, most Muslims refuse to admit before non-Muslims, say fellow Americans, that this hateful teaching is actually part of their religion. The Islamic State is an exception. In an article titled, Why We Hate You and Why We Fight You, ISIS honestly informed the West that, quote, we hate you first and foremost because you are disbelievers or infidels. At any rate, here at last we come to it. Based on everything I've said so far, and for those who know, all I've been doing is describing the mainstream Muslim doctrine of al-wala wal-bara, also known as loyalty and enmity, or love and hate for Allah's sake. Based on all this, how can an observant Muslim take the oath of allegiance to America? The answer is simple. Despite its draconian reputation, Sharia offers Muslims any number of dispensations, especially against the infidel, including the freedom to lie as needed. Thus, should a Muslim ever find himself under the authority of non-Muslims, for instance as a potential citizen of the U.S., he's permitted to swear allegiance to them, even to the point of cursing and renouncing Islam. There are ample historical precedents for this sort of duplicitous behavior. Quran 3:28 is one of the most cited verses that justifies insincere shows of loyalty to non-Muslims. It says, quote, let believers not take for friends and allies non-believers rather than believers, and whoever does this shall have no relationship left with Allah, unless you but guard yourselves against them, taking precautions. The words translated here as guard and precaution are derived from the Arabic word taqu, which itself forms the root of the notorious word taqiyya, the Islamic doctrine that permits Muslims to deceive non-Muslims whenever under their authority. Ibn Kathir, author of one of the most authoritative commentaries on the Quran, says of this verse, verse 328, quote, whoever at any time or place fears evil from non-Muslims may protect himself through outward show. As proof, he quotes one of Muhammad's close companions, Abu Darda, who said, quote, let us grin in the face of some people while our hearts curse them. Muhammad al-Tabari, author of another celebrated commentary on the Quran, interprets verse 328 by saying, quote, if you, Muslims, are under their, non-Muslims' authority, fearing for yourselves, behave loyally to them with your tongue, while harboring inner animosity for them. Know that Allah has forbidden believers from being friendly or on intimate terms with non-believers rather than believers, except when the infidels are above them in authority. Should that be the case, let them act friendly towards them while preserving their religion. Incidentally, and contrary to Islamic apologetics, Muslims are permitted to deceive non-Muslims for reasons above and beyond self-preservation. They are encouraged, for example, to use deception, including to the point of cursing and renouncing Muhammad, to score a victory against infidels. Consider the account of the Jewish poet Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf. According to the official biographer of the Prophet, Ibn Ishaq, Ka'b insulted Muhammad with his poetry, to the point that Muhammad exclaimed, who will kill this man who has hurt Allah and his Prophet? A young Muslim man named Muhammad ibn Maslama volunteered on condition that in order to get close enough to assassinate Ka'b, he be allowed to lie to the poet. The Prophet permitted him to do so. Ibn Maslama traveled to meet Ka'b and began to complain about Muhammad until his disaffection from Islam became so convincing that Ka'b eventually dropped his guard and befriended him. He was convinced he's no longer a follower of Muhammad. After behaving as his friend for some time, Ibn Maslama eventually appeared with another crypto-Muslim. Then, while a trusting Ka'b's guard was down, they attacked and slaughtered him, bringing his head to Muhammad to triumphant cries of Allahu Akbar. I think all this goes a long way to explain how Muslims can easily take the oath of allegiance to America, while in no way, shape, or form meaning it. Okay, we've gone on for quite a bit, so let's end it here. Because, and believe it or not, one of its most glaring contradictions with Islamic teachings is yet to come.